Welcome to MMAPlay365. I'm Newsome and I'm here to give you a Base AI recap from our UFC prediction software from last weekend at UFC Orlando. Now at UFC Orlando there was a lot of underdogs that won in the night, an abnormal amount of underdogs. So Base AI hit 65% across the straight pick prediction accuracy. And I actually think, although it's not as high as what we normally like it to be, it's actually not a bad number considering that the event was a very strange one in regards to, like I say, certain fighters winning that a lot of people were surprised about. So at 65%, I think the AI did a really good job. I think the prediction software did a really good job. And, again, it's those events where a lot of underdogs win that a lot of people and a lot of predictions are normally much lower than what they normally are. So to be sitting still at around 65%, I'm very, very happy. As always, though, we're going to break down 4 or 5 fights from an AI perspective, just to give a little bit of a recap and an insight into exactly what the AI was seeing on the night. Now we're going to start on the value section. So this is normally where the AI has had a prediction that's incorrect, but said that the fight was much closer than the bookies suggest, which has ended up being true because the fighter that was predicted to lose by the AI did end up winning and proving that the odds were way too wide initially. So the one fighter in the value section is Michael Johnson, who fought Marc Diakiese. Now the AI had Michael Johnson to win at 44%. Now at 44%, the odds implied there is plus 127. So the AI was saying that Johnson should have been an underdog, but just should have been much shorter, should have been a lower underdog than what the bookies were suggesting. Now, Michael Johnson, you could have got as a 3-1 underdog. So at 3-1, that does provide some value. So if you are somebody that uses Base AI from a value perspective, and you're seeing that the AI is saying that Michael Johnson should have been plus 127, but you're getting a plus 300 ticket, then again, that would have been a cash ticket and a good value bet for yourself as well. So that's the one in the value section. Now we're moving into some solid winners. Now, the first solid winner to talk about is Yazmin Haruki versus Istela Nunes. Istela Nunes appeared to be a popular bet from the public, but Haruki to win, Base AI had at 64%. Now, odds implied, that's minus 178. So the AI was relatively confident that Haruki should have been a moderate to large size favourite. However, on the betting line, Haruki was around minus 350, so there was actually no value in that money line from Haruki at 64% when you're looking at the odds at minus 350. However, you can still get some, or you could have still got some good value on this fight if you'd looked a little bit further into the AI. So Haruki to win inside the distance, so that's knockout submission percentages added together, was 41%. Now at 41%, the odds implied is plus 144. So the AI is saying for Haruki to finish the fight, whether that be a knockout or submission, the odds should have been plus 144 for that. And if you'd have gone to the bookies looking for that Haruki to win inside the distance line, you'd have had plus 200 to plus 225. So there was plenty of value there on Haruki to win inside the distance, considering what Base AI had predicted and what odds you're getting at the bookies. But then you could have gone one step further. Haruki to win via knockout TKO. So no submission, just by KO or TKO. Base AI had that at 37%. Odds implied at 37% is plus 170. You look at the bookies odds, you could have got anywhere from plus 250 to plus 280. So again, this is one of those fights where you'd have had no value on the money line from what Base AI had predicted to the bookies odds. But if you looked a little bit deeper, you could have gone Haruki to win inside the distance. You could have had Haruki to win knockout or TKO or both. And you would have had some value on that as well. So sometimes it's worth looking deeper into the fight to see where you can find that value. Now, the next solid winner was Francis Marshall making his UFC debut. The kid's young, only 23, and he was fighting Marcelo Rojo, who is a tough, experienced fighter. Base AI had Marshall to win at 67%. Odds implied on 67% is minus 203. You could have got Marshall at minus 150 to minus 170, depending on when you bet him throughout fight week. So there was plenty of value there, again, from Base AI's prediction and then looking at the bookies odds. But what I really liked about this is, like I said, Marshall was making his UFC debut. He was young. In my opinion, I thought he was quite green and raw pre-UFC against Marcelo Rojo, who I did actually pick to win on my podcast on the money line. And I feel that Again, it was a solid pick from Bezai because it could have very easily leaned towards the experienced fighter, the fighter that's been in there with a better level of competition. But at 67%, Bezai is relatively confident. That's not a small number. So yeah, I was really impressed with that Francis Marshall prediction from Bezai. Now, in the next solid winners fight, this kind of is a solid winner, but it's more of a solid prediction, and I'll explain what I mean by that. We've got Clay Guida versus Scott Holtzman. Now, Bezai had Clay Guida to win at 50.55%, so basically saying it's a coin flip with a slight edge towards Clay Guida. Now, the odds implied at 50.55% is minus 102. You could have got Clay Guida at plus 190, so insane amounts of value on the winner there. And again, if you're playing value spots, you could have think, Bezai saying it's a coin flip, but is also saying it should be minus 102, and I'm getting nearly a 2-to-1 betting ticket at the bookies. But what I really liked about this prediction is not only did it slightly favour Guida, and technically that counts as a correct prediction, but it was also saying that this fight is razor close. So A, razor close, that the bookies odds should be much shorter, but B, just a razor close fight. Like, the stats really match up well, and both fighters are going to be ultra competitive with each other. And it was a split decision. I think Guida was rightly the winner, so I think the judges did have it right overall. But again, Bezai just knew that this was just going to be a super close fight. There wasn't going to be a lot in it, which there wasn't on the night. But again, when you're playing the betting game, it's also providing value for you as well. So that's the reason why I really enjoyed the Clay Guida prediction from Bezai. I think it absolutely nailed that fight. And the final fight to talk about from Bezai with the predictions from last weekend, and it seems like a common theme lately, we've got Sergei Pavlovich versus Tuivasa. Now, Bezai had Pavlovich to win at 60%. Odds implied at 60% is minus 150. Now, depending where and when you bet Pavlovich depends on if you got value here, because Pavlovich did open up at minus 115. He closed at around minus 200. So anywhere between there, you might have found some value, but obviously at that closing line, there was no value there. But we go even further. So Pavlovich to win inside the distance, again, that's the knockout and submission percentages added together. That was 51% from Bezai. So at 51%, the odds implied is minus 104. Now, if you'd have gone to the bookies with inside the distance, you'd have been looking at minus 145. So again, there was no value there on inside the distance. So then maybe you might want to start looking at Pavlovich to win via knockout, because the likelihood of him submitting to Tuivasa is slim. And you look at just the knockout alone, that's 50% compared to your inside the distance at 51. So you look at Pavlovich to win by KO, TKO. At 50%, the odds implied are plus 100. Minus 130 on the betting line. So again, the line's coming down a little bit. You're getting slightly more value each time you break it down a little bit further, but still not enough value to be, classified as a good bet. But we're going one step further again. Pavlovich to win via knockout in round one, 44%. 44% at odds implied. You're looking at plus 127. And this is where you get your value finally, because at the bookies, Pavlovich to win via knockout in round one was plus 165. So again, it just shows that with Bezai, with the way or the amount of predictions and the percentages that you're getting, that you can start to find value if it's not quite there initially with the way you're looking at it. So Pavlovich to win at 60%, some people might have got some value there, but if you missed the value due to the line movement, then you could look at inside the distance where you wouldn't get so much value, knockout, TKO where you get slightly more value but still not so much value, and then finally you get to your Pavlovich knockout round one, which was the most likely outcome for the fight to finish. 44% plus 127. Bezai is saying you're getting a plus 165 betting ticket that will have cashed, and also cashed very easily. So again, you could have even looked at some over-unders here. Tuivasa, he was likely to knock him out in round one as well, should he have won the fight. So again, you might have looked at the under 1.5 rounds or the under 2.5 rounds, or fight doesn't go to a decision. There's different ways you could have looked at this fight. I don't have all those specific numbers and the odds implied for the over-unders that I've just mentioned, and obviously fight doesn't go to the decision prop. But Again, there's plenty of different ways to work Bayes AI. I think it had a really good event, again, at 65%, an event where, there was a lot of underdogs winning, like I've already described and mentioned the reasoning behind that. So that's all for UFC Orlando. Really intrigued to see the numbers for next week at UFC 282, especially with that brand new main event for the vacant UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. I'm Newsome. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week with another Bayes AI recap.